What's up, this is BoxingWave. Pardon my voice. I've been sick for the last few days. So I'm finally gonna get the chance to do this prediction video. I wasn't gonna do it. This is another fight that I felt was too hard to call. Too many outcomes to this fight. Alright, it's really hard to predict. So this is one prediction that if I'm wrong, I really won't be that upset. You know, because it's just too hard to predict. But it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. I just woke up. And I'm like, you know what? It just popped up in my head who I think is going to win this fight. Now, George Groves is undefeated. He's undefeated. He's he hasn't fought the level of competition that Carl Froch has fought. But Carl Froch is, getting older. And even though he's won his last few fights and he's looked good winning, now he's still going up there in age now, and he's fighting a young, undefeated, hungry fighter in George Groves. George Groves has a superior foot movement. I think he's a busier fighter. I think he fights with his jab. He uses his jab often. He has solid power, and he has that youth, and he has the speed advantage by far too. Carl Froch, great jab as well. Not as fast, pretty flat-footed, but he's a better counterpuncher, much more experienced fighter, and he's fought and beaten guys that I think are a lot better than George Groves. All right. Now, I think this fight can go so many ways. George Groves winning by decision is one outcome. I think his work rate is going to be a little bit better. I don't know if his punches are going to be as effective as Carl Froch, because Carl Froch, I think, is better at pressuring his fighter. We've seen that. In the Jermaine Taylor fight, we first seen that. We saw that in the Lucien Boutte fight. He's better at pressuring that fighter, and these guys are higher caliber fighters compared to the guys that George Groves fought. So I see George Groves fighting on the back foot often in this fight, which he's pretty good at doing. I don't think Carl Froch is the hardest guy to hit. He has good defense, but George Groves should be able to land his jab. Would it be effective? I don't know. But if George Groves were to win, it would be by decision. It would be because, he outworked Carl Froch, who is the older guy. And George Groves is the younger, hungrier fighter. As far as Carl Froch, I see it either going by knockout. I definitely think Carl Froch is capable of knocking out George Groves. As far as, I'm not saying George Groves doesn't have a chin. I think he does. And then he's fought under pressure a few times. But Carl Froch is a different kind of animal, man. And Carl Froch is definitely capable of knocking him out, maybe in the later rounds, not as early as everyone else is saying. Another outcome, Carl Froch by decision. Carl Froch just getting the best of him, and just adding that pressure. I don't know. This fight is gonna be, style makes fights, and I think style-wise, I think George Groves' style is tailored. I think George Groves' style is superior to Carl Froch's, because he has the foot movement and the speed and the jab, But Carl Froch has fought guys like this before and beaten them. He beat Andre Dirrell. Even though I thought Dirrell kind of won the fight, he had Dirrell under pressure often in that fight. And he brought the fight to Dirrell. And, I don't think it was a robbery, but I thought Dirrell edged that fight. Jermaine Taylor, you see what happened in that fight, Jermaine Taylor had the superior footwork. You know, I thought he hit harder than Carl Froch, and I thought, you know, he outworked him like maybe 2/3 of the fight. But Carl Froch did what he had to do in the later rounds, and he was able to stop him in the last round. You know, so the only person that I've seen Carl Froch lose to was Andre Ward, like really lose to. I mean, I know he lost to Mikhail Kessler, but even that was a close fight. You know, very debatable fight. And he came and avenged that fight. So, this is how I see it. Alright, a lot of people are judging this fight based on all of the stuff that's on the outside of the fight, like the interviews, you know, the trash talking. It's like always a news headlines every time one of them says something about the other one. These guys are on YouTube, just, you know, just talking so much trash about each other. And a lot of people feel like George Groves is getting under Carl Froch's skin. I think that is so irrelevant, okay? Because when it comes to fight time, it's a totally different. When these guys are in the ring, it's a totally different story. George Groves is going to try to beat this guy just like he tries to beat any other of his fighters. And the same thing with Carl Froch. You know, these guys are just going to go in there and do what they have to do. When it comes to time to fight, I think all of that other stuff is irrelevant, all right? One thing about George Groves, though, the fight with James Nagel, I thought James Nagel won the fight. I don't think it was a robbery because it was close. But James Nagel, in my eyes, pressured and he kind of bullied George Groves, especially in the later rounds. I think George Groves had a lot of the earlier rounds, and I think he landed more shots. But George Groves actually hurt this guy often in the fight. And I kind of see the fight going the same way. Possibly going the same way. But the difference in that fight, in this fight, I think Carl Froch is going to pressure him early. You know, early is that James Nagel, he took a little too long to get everything going for me. You know, and this is why I feel that he lost the fight. The judges gave the fight to George Groves. So, like I said, with style-wise, I think George Groves won the fight. This is why I couldn't make a decision. I think George Groves won the fight style-wise. My heart is telling me Carl Froch is going to beat this guy. Carl Froch has beaten guys that are a lot tougher, a lot better than George Groves, in my opinion. And, you know, he finds ways to win. And then not only that, but when he is losing, he has the ability to fight dirty. And he will do that if he is having trouble landing against this guy. You know, I think he just has too many weapons to lose this fight. Even though he's flat-footed, even though he's not as fast, you know. And he's still hungry, in my opinion. He's still hungry, you know. He's older, but he's still hungry. So, I think Carl Froch is going to win by maybe 8th, 9th round KO, even maybe 7th round or decision. But I think it's going to be a later round, middle to later round TKO. All right, I think it's just going to be too much. I definitely think he's going to knock him down at least once. All right, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. You know what? It is what it is. But for this fight, even though style-wise, I think George Groves will beat this guy, I'm going to go with my heart for this fight. I'm going to take Carl Froch, okay? Alright, so leave comments on who you think is going to win. Subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter at @wavy_10.